welcome back to another late night recording of the Nebraska Shootaround podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Padilla, a men's basketball beat writer for Varsity, and joining me as always is Jacob Bigelow, the former manager and current contributor to Huskers Illustrated on the basketball beat. And we are talking at you after Nebraska's win over Omaha on Thursday night, which got the Huskers off to their first 2-0 start during the Fred Hoiberg era. So, what's your reaction to that? Like, you're the first one that said it's like, what is that the first time that Fred's gotten off to 2-0 start here?
It's eye-opening, that's for sure, but it also just tells you what the previous 3 years have been like. I think that perfectly encapsulates what the previous 3 seasons under Fred have been like. Obviously, the first game under him, they got ran off their own court by UC Riverside, and that was a unfortunate sign of things to come. And but here we are, and thanks to a workmanlike attitude, I'll call it that, they're 2-0 for the first time since Tim Miles' last season. Nebraska basketball is 2-0, and we're here to tell you all about it.
Yeah, and that's there are obviously talent issues throughout the entire Hoiberg era, but they also lost games they shouldn't have, and they gave away games where they had a chance to win, where maybe they shouldn't have won the game, but they put themselves in position to and then couldn't grab it at the end. And so that's probably the most important thing in the start is they simply took care of business. They won the games they were supposed to. They didn't cover either game, right?
They did not. They were 20-point favorites against Maine and 17.5-point favorites tonight. So they did not cover either game. But
yeah, definitely not dominant showings by any means, but they got some good teaching tape, and they responded to some adversity, which has been a sticking point for this program under Hoiberg, and they got the 2 wins. So that's the most important thing. And we will start with the first of those 2 wins, which was a 79-66 win over Maine on opening day, which was Monday. And that was it's another game where Nebraska, they look good for stretches. I mean, both these games, we'll get into the Omaha game. Both these games followed a similar script where Nebraska did well at one point. They built up a lead, then they let it slip away, and then they pushed back, let it slip away, and then they kind of delivered a knockout blow and held on down the stretch. So in this case, I guess the first thing to note is Hoiberg changed his starting lineup from what we saw during the exhibitions, where Juwan Gary started the 4, and then Blaze Keita filled in for Derek Walker, who remains out. And they moved Wilhelm Breitenbach to the bench and played primarily back at 5 in both these games. And that change kind of had an immediate impact. Right away, Gary had a tip in on their first possession, then catch and shoot corner 3 in front of the other team's bench on the second. Then he dove on the ball on the ground to get a steal and called the timeout to get possession back for Nebraska. So Gary was the guy that set the tone in that one. And they got to a 9-0 start, and Gary had 6 of those points because he drew a foul on an offensive rebound as well. So actually is one where he missed twice, rebounded both misses, and then finally got a foul call on the third possession. So that was kind of the Juwan Gary special there. But great start. And then Wilhelm came in at the 5 and scored 2 at a nice little roll down the lane for dunk in a pick and roll with Sam Griesel. And then had a face-up play where he drove, went to his left and finished past him. So the lineup changes had an impact, and both those guys kind of played well early on. So that was a 13-2 start for Nebraska. And that's slow starts have been an issue, and they addressed that in this one. Maine kind of made runs, got back into it, and kind of late in the half, it had some push here and there. Nebraska led at halftime. And then out of the gates, Maine comes firing off. And there's an issue with Blaze Keita, as we'll talk about more of the positives once we get in the Omaha game. But one thing that stood out on the film watching from JUCO is he cannot guard stretch bigs of any kind. He just cannot do it. He gets lost. He's always thinking help. And that was a big part of that start to the half where they came out out of the gates and cut that thing down to 1. And they had a chance to take the lead. So it was a 40-28 lead. They were up 40-25, gave up a 3. And so they took a 40-28 lead in halftime. And then Maine came storming back, knocking down a bunch of threes. Their big guy pick and pop, got some easy ones. Then the other Maine shooter guy finished with 20 points. I don't remember how to say his name, and I'm not going to go find the pronunciation guide. But he had a couple of contested ones, hand in his face, and got it down to 1. And Nebraska turned the ball over, and they had a chance, kind of a breakaway to go down and score and take the lead. And Emmanuel Banamel chased down, block, pinned that thing off the glass, got the ball back, went down and scored on the other end. And that started a 14-1 run that kind of put the game away. And that run included that bucket from Banamel, a cut for a layup from Keisei Tominaga, a Wilhelm Beidenbrock 3, Jawan Gary layup, and then a Sam Griesel 3. So that's basically every bucket was from a different guy during that stretch. And then Griesel had a cut for a layup, and Tominaga had kind of a drive for another little finger roll to end that run. But that put him up 68-54. And then the last 8.5 minutes or so was just kind of treading water. They didn't play particularly well, but Maine also didn't start hitting the shots that they hit early on in the half to get back into it. So that was kind of the story of the game. What stood out to you from that one?
Main game, I mean, it's kind of crazy thinking about these two games. I mean, obviously we have the recency of the Omaha game we just watched. It was kind of a tale of two scoring casts, really. The only constant was Sam Griesel. The guys we saw perform really well on Monday, Keisei Tominaga, Wilhelm Breidenbach, Jawan Gary. I was impressed with Wilhelm. You've talked ad nauseum about how the 5 is more natural for him. And it helped that they were playing Maine, but I mean early on it looked like they didn't have an answer for him because he was playing a position probably more fit for him. I think he did he hit 1-3 on Monday, if I remember? Yeah, he hit 1-3. He stepped
during that run there, the 14-1 run.
Yep.
That was his bucket.
Yep. No, he stepped out and hit 1. Yeah, Monday, that game was just odd, man. That game was just odd. Maine, I mean, all you need to know about Maine basketball is they had one guy whose name was Jedi. It was Jedi with a G. Might have been, I mean, at least that's what Fred called him. Fred called him Jedi. And then they had a guy who just went by Fofo. So that's all you need to know about Maine basketball is Jedi and Fofo and their New Balance gear. But that game just like there's not really much to nothing really was like stand out. They just kind of like was just more of the same. I think they didn't shoot it particularly well, but they just like labored and fought through and pulled away when they needed to pull away. I mean, it was not pretty by any means, and but from everything we've been told by Fred Hoiberg, that's how he wants it to be. So
yeah, and you mentioned Breidenbach hit 9 points on 4-6 shooting, 7 boards, 3 assists in 17 minutes, and again played basically all his minutes at the 5. Blaze Keita only played 10 minutes again, scored 1 point. Oleg Koyanets came in late in the first half when Breidenbach picked up his second foul. So that's kind of, and then he didn't play against Omaha until garbage time. So that's kind of looks to be the role for him right now with Derek Walker out. Is kind of situational. When they need him, they'll go to him, but probably not a regular rotation player. But you mentioned Keisei Tominaga. 19 points, 7 of 12 shooting, 3 of 7 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. So like that's again 19 points, and he only did it with 3 threes. He did a great job. Like the first bucket, pump fake, dribble, like sidestep 3, miss. Denham Dawson flew in there, got the rebound, kicked it right back out to him, and he did not miss the second time. Basically, same spot, catch and shoot. He ran a pin down for him, and so he missed a corner 3 over a late contest out of a blob play, and then they ran a pin down for him to the corner. Defender got through the screen and was there, and Casey shot it anyway. And shot off the side of the backboard. And that's the thing I mentioned to you watching the Omaha game is he doesn't have a great feel for where the defender is. He just kind of decides, you know what, I'm catching this, I'm shooting the ball.
It's either he doesn't see defenders, or he just doesn't care, or it's a mixture of the two.
Yeah, hard to tell.
Yes, very hard to tell.
But I guess after that he blocked a layup, got himself going that way, and then. On the next play down, dribble handoff 3 with Wilhelm, knocked it down. His next touch, another dribble handoff, and the defender jumped, and he attacked and got all the way to the basket for a layup, right-handed layup at that.
Yep.
And again, same thing on his next layup. Dribble handoff, defender jumped, he got downhill and kind of laid it up right over the front of the rim. And then they ran kind of a Spain pick-and-roll type of look where he popped up to the top of the key as the big was rolling down the lane. Caught it deep and knocked it down. So he scored 10 straight points for Nebraska, and the 2 threes and the 2 layups, and put them up 48-25 with about 2.5 to go in the half. Nebraska did not score again in the last 2.5 minutes, but Maine also only hit 1 more shot. So kind of they ran out of juice late in the half, but they kind of held on to that lead and then pulled it away in the second half. But Casey, he had the cut for a layup. It was a great read that I mentioned during the 14-1 run. So he overall played one of his better games for Nebraska. And then Juwan Gary had a double-double, 14 points, 11 rebounds, including 8 on the offensive end. Shot only 5 of 15 from the field and 3 of 6 from the free throw line, unfortunately. You'd like to see him a little bit more efficient than that, but he also a lot of those misses were rebounds were his own misses. So he didn't quite use as many separate possessions to get those points as the shooting numbers indicate. But you'll still take that effort, kind of setting the tone. So those were the 2 kind of key, like the double-digit scores outside of Sam Griesel, who again just kind of. And this happened the same way in the Omaha game, but he just lets the game come to him, doesn't necessarily get off to a fast start. He kind of waits for his chances and then kind of picks up momentum as the game goes on and finds his ways to score, finds his ways to get downhill, to get to the free throw line, whatever it may be. Hit that 3, like I said, during that run, his first 3 as a Husker. And he finishes up with 22 points. Efficient 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists in 37 minutes.
And 18 of those 22 were in the second half.
Yep. And again, something that happened in the other game, when they hit a rough spot, he was the only guy that was scoring for a bit. Like in that second half, they were struggling to stay afloat, and he was the only guy getting buckets while Maine was making that run to cut it down. Had a couple layups in there, drew a foul. So he's the kind of guy that's gonna keep him afloat, keep him kind of when the team is struggling, he's gonna put him on his back. And so far, he's delivered in 2 games. So those were the 3 double-digit scores: Griesel, Gary, and Tominaga, and then you got a little bit from Breitenbach. CJ Wilcher did not play well. 7 points, 2 of 8 shooting. Emmanuel Bandebel did not play well. 6 points on 3 of 9 shooting. Missed all 3 of his threes. Had 8 boards and 3 assists though. And defensively, you like what you're going to get from him. And then Bleeds Keto, like I said, only 2 points, only played 10 minutes. So that was basically it. Denham Dawson played 23 minutes, 1 board, 1 assist, 2 turnovers. So again, he was a lot of effort in that out of there, but didn't really make an impact in the box score. So that's kind of the main game. I think we covered everything there. The 42-16 edge in the paint. They shot 7 of 22 from three, which is right under 32%. So not what you want to see there, but overall they got the job done. I guess moving on here, Omaha, obviously the team from up the road. You knew they were going to come into this game juiced up. They opened their season at reigning champion Kansas as they hung their banners on Omaha. So, and most of the guys that played had never played a D1 game before that. So can imagine that the brights might have been, or the lights might have been bright there for those guys. Probably guys kind of staring around, taking in the atmosphere. Credit to Omaha. They hung around most of that game. There was a 7-point game early in the second half before Kansas hit them with a 15-0 run, I think, to stretch it out.
They had a possession to cut it to 5, and they went up for a layup that got pinned off the backboard, and Kansas just opened the floodgates from there. But yeah, crazy, hell of a way to start. One, for a team where only 2 returners have played D1 basketball before, and 2, for the first 2 games under a first-time D1 head coach in Chris Crutchfield. I mean, that is quite the way to start. If you know how the Omaha program operates, they have to take a lot of these bye games year in, year out to pay the bills. And starting right off, going from Allen Fieldhouse on Monday to Pinnacle Bank Arena for the first time since 2014 on tonight. I think that's crazy. It had been 8 years since these 2 programs had faced off in hoops.
And that was back when they were still making the transition to D1 too. I believe they weren't a full D1 team yet. So yeah, it has been a while, but obviously Trev Alberts, it sounded like they were trying to work things out with the previous coaching staff over there in Omaha, and
then Trev got Alberts, there and said, "Why don't you guys schedule Omaha?"
Trev got word and kind of made sure to get those talks fired up again, and they got this game on the schedule. So credit to Omaha coming in again. Great effort. They may be 0-2 on their record, but they are 2-0 against the spread. And as we all know, great teams cover.
Maverick Mojo, Wi-Fi'd it.
The final score was this 75-61 for Nebraska. This game wasn't quite as you didn't get the feeling like the main game, like here we go again. Like they made their runs, but the runs cut it down to 7. And they get any closer than that?
They got within 5, I think.
I think it was 5 in the first half and then 7 in the second half, I think.
Yep.
But that was and Nebraska kind of immediately responded to each of those runs. So it's a little different story, but here, great start. 11-0 start for Nebraska. It held Omaha to 0-6 shooting to start the game. Blaze Keita, strong move for the first buck of the game. Lefty jump hook and one.
And what did I say to you right away? I looked. They've fed him right away, and I looked at you and I said, "Mouse in a house."
And I was of the same opinion. As I tweeted out something like that. I like this matchup for him. And then Chris Crutchfield quickly must have felt the same way because he subbed in a guy off the bench there to play the 5, Kenny Brown, who did not play against Kansas. So tried to mix things up a little bit there because the guy I think was a good matchup. Dylan Brahms, not a stretch big, not a guy that's going to step out and knock down threes consistently. And he's a smaller guy, 6'9", listed at 195, I believe. So tough matchup, and Blaze Keita did what he was supposed to with that matchup. He ended up coming just short of a double-double, 9 points, 12 rebounds, shot 4 of 6 from the field, 1 of 2 from the line. Did have 4 turnovers, but I think you'll live with that based on the other production that he had. So great start for him. And then the other guy that has been struggling was CJ Wilcher, and he came alive. He finished with a career high 21 points on 8 of 12 shooting, 4-7 from 3, had a couple of assists, did not turn the ball over. Emmanuel Vanderbilt, like I said, after not hitting a 3 in that first game, he knocked down 2 back-to-back early during Nebraska's good start. He hit 2 threes to put him up 21-6. Finished with 18 points on 5 of 10 or on 6 of 11 shooting. 2 of 4 from 3, 4 of 6 from the line, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, I believe. So good all-around game from Vanderbilt. A good game from Kita, and Nebraska, you couldn't have asked for a much better start. 21-6. Denham Dawson came in. He had to play more minutes in this game and had knocked down a 3 during their start, which you're like, oh, okay. If you can do that, then that opens the door to a lot more playing time for him. And then drove the baseline and threw down a dunk on a poor UNO defender that we will not name here.
We will not. We have too much respect for the man to name him.
Indeed.
So.
Great play, put him up 26-9, 17-point lead. So you're feeling good. And then Omaha kind of made a run there. They got it a little bit kind of in close there. Started pushing the pressure on as Nebraska went cold. That, like I said, they got it down to 5. And then guess who? Sam Griesel responds.
Yep.
And so it's a 5-point game, 31-26. Sam Griesel got to free throw line, hit a pair. Then Sam Griesel split a pair of free throws. Then Sam Griesel driving layup to put them back up 8. And then CJ Welcher scored as well to push that thing back to 10. And they ended up taking a 10-point lead into halftime because of kind of a putback slam at the buzzer by Markel Sutton. But after being up by 17, they took a 41-31 lead into the second half. And kind of, again, a good start defensively. They held them to 1 of 8 from the field with 4 turnovers in the first 6 minutes of the game to extend that lead back to 16 at 51-35. And Omaha, to their credit, they didn't quit. They pushed back. 11-2 run, including a 4-point play from Jaden Marshall, which we'll talk about this after we finish this up.
Yes.
How he got that 4-point play. But it goes in the books as a 4-point play that cut the lead down to 7. But 15 seconds later, CJ Wilford answered right back with a 3 of his own. And shortly after that, Nebraska put together a 14-4 run to steal the game. And then again, it was second half, like that 14-4 run kind of took them up to the 2 minutes to go. And then both teams were able to get their walk-ons in there. Sam Griesel and Jeffrey Grace III got to play the final minute. So congrats to those guys for playing their first minutes at the college level. Neither scored. You can tell Jeffrey got a little nervous / juiced up because he got an open look from the corner and sent it well over the backboard.
I'll say this, man. They were scrambling then, and it was a late game. Someone wants to get a shot up, and they probably gave it to the guy who least wanted to get the shot up, from what I can tell. Because they had Sam and Jamarcus out there on the court, and I think one of them probably would have been the preferred destination for the ball, but instead it wound up with poor Jeff Grace in the corner. But and then also for Omaha, well, this is a Nebraska podcast. Also for Omaha, good to see Lewis Fiddler and Lincoln Northeast's own Xander Beard get into the game at the end for Omaha as well. Would have been cool if Xander had gone up for that layup at the end, but he tried to pass it off instead. But that's okay. Still cool. We like seeing local guys get playing time for local teams. So
indeed. So both teams emptied their benches there, and a lot of guys got a chance to get their first playing time. So again, I mean, both these games were very similar in terms of kind of the game script and how they played out. And this time, again, CJ 21 game high, Bandamel 16, 18, and Sam Griesel 18 points, 8 of 12 from the free throw line. You would have liked to see a couple more of those go in, but he got there a ton. 7 boards, 3 assists, and no turnovers, and only played 34 minutes, so didn't have to quite push him. Like, if you can get out of a game playing Sam anywhere from 30 to 34 minutes, you'll feel good. You don't want to see it where he's playing 37, 38 minutes every night out, especially when you've got multiple games in a short stretch. So I think that was another win, not having to have him out there every minute and be able to kind of get away with it. So yeah, Sam's again, like I said, it's a guy that's, when things get tough, he's going to try to put the team on his back and get to the basket, start scoring until somebody else starts feeling it again, and then he can step back and get back more into the distributing role. Nebraska shot 7 of 19 from 3, so a little bit of improvement. Shot 37%. You'll take that for this team, but most of those were CJ. And the guys that we mentioned in the first game, Juwan Gary, Wilhelm Vandenbell, and Keisa Tominaga, they combined for 0 points.
You just called Wilhelm Vandemel. So.
Wilhelm, Vandenbell, and Tominaga. Those 3 guys. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, right. No. I'm looking at the box score. If I did that, yeah. Oh well.
It's late. It's okay.
It is indeed late. But yeah, those 3 guys did not score. It was somebody else. So they had 5 guys score 74 of their 75 points, with true freshman Jamarcus Lawrence, who made his debut and played 14 minutes, and he scored the other point and split a pair of free throws. So congrats to Jamarcus for his first career point as a Husker. And I thought he was pretty feisty out there in his minutes defensively. And part of the reason he got so many minutes, and Denham Dawson ended up playing, what was it? Another 23 minutes, or no, that was the first game. Here we go. 21 minutes was Juwan Gary kind of went down 6 minutes in the second half with the shoulder injury. And Fred Hoiberg said, like, it's something that's been bothering him. He kind of wraps it up in practice every day, and it's a deal where he probably just hit it the wrong way and could have gone back in, but they had the lead, and the young guys he thought were playing well enough to leave him out there. So they were cautious with it and held him out. But so if you saw him go down in that game, it seemed everything seems to be okay, but also seems like a shoulder is something that may have to worry about long term if he were to hit the ground the wrong way. And he seems like a guy that's going to be hitting the ground quite a bit, the way that he crashes the glass with reckless abandon. His offensive game was probably reckless abandon is a good way to describe it as well. Out of control a little bit tonight. So he's going to have to find the sweet spot between what we saw in that first game. Obviously it's against a D2 team, and we said don't get too excited, but taking 15 shots, score 14 points, and then not scoring at all. So he's a guy that I think you get some big games, you get some other games where maybe he struggles a little bit offensively, but still gives you the hustle. And that's where this team is. I don't know that you're going to, outside of Sam Griesel, I think he's going to be pretty consistent for you game in and game out. But everybody else, it's going to be, I think it could be a different guy on different games. They need basically to win games, they're going to need one of either Wilcher or Tominaga to have a good game.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have one of those guys knocking down threes, and then you're going to have Bandamel more often than not hit a couple of shots as well. If you can do that, and then you'll take anything you get from a 3-point perspective from Griesel, from Breidenbach. If you can get one 3 apiece or 1 3 between those two every game, I think you'll take that. So you'd like to have guys that you can rely on more consistently, but I don't know that they're there yet. But they do have options. That's kind of the key here is, Wilcher didn't play well in the first game. Tominaga came in and played well and picked up the slack, and they got the win. Tominaga didn't bring the same spark, but they didn't need it because Welcher got off to a great start and kept it going the rest of the game. So, that's, I think, kind of the main takeaway there from that Omaha game is it's good 2 games in to see what basically one guy in Greasel in both games and then 4 or 5 others all score double figures in their first 2 games. So you got 5, 6 guys there that you can look to for offensive production, depending on who's playing well in that particular game.
Yeah, and Fred echoed that sentiment basically when we were talking to him tonight. I mean, he said, doesn't expect the same guy to lead him in scoring in back-to-back games, and, it's all hands on deck, next man up, that type of mentality. Obviously, I completely agree. I think Sam Griesel's going to find a way to get his one way or another, and then it's just going to be a question of who's next. Yep. So that's what it looks like so far to me.
Yeah, and the kind of part of the quote from Hoiberg was to be able to go to the well with other guys. That's just what this team is built on. That's what it's all about. You're not going to see the same guy lead this team in scoring on a nightly basis. You have to have that. You have to accept that as a group, and you have to be okay with it. That's what I think this group is all about. And Fred told the story of how they had Denham Dawson's dad come in and speak to the team. He's a Special Forces Marine, been in combat situations before, and just kind of talked about just his experiences and comparing them to kind of what they're going through just as a team, and says he thought it really had an impact on the team. So credit to Denham's dad there for kind of giving the pregame speech for that team to get them fired up. And they're bringing the fight. They're bringing the kind of togetherness that maybe we haven't seen from previous Hoiberg teams. And that's allowed them to get through these first 2 games with a pair of wins.
Absolutely. You said at the top, adversity and reacting to adversity. It's been a talking point for Fred since he got here. And we've seen this team react well twice, back-to-back games to start the season. I think we haven't mentioned Sam Griesel eclipsed the 1,000-point mark tonight. So congrats to Sam on that. Did it in a kind of unceremonious or exciting manner with 2 made free throws early in the first half. Came in on 998, just needed 2 to get there, and
I'm gonna have to give him a hard time about that. You at least got to get the and one to go over that 1,000-point threshold in style. But credit to him. He and I didn't even think about make the connection before, but Kyan Brown, Omaha assistant, came from North Dakota State, did a great job up there, was a huge get for Chris Crutchfield for his staff in Omaha. And so unfortunately Kyan was on the other end of him reaching that threshold tonight, but it was cool for them both to kind of think they were able to catch up before or after the game. And Sam and Kyan both tweeted about it. So kind of a cool experience there for a guy that's put in a lot of work and come a long way, and to be where he is now. Again, I kind of seen him every step of his stop from high school to North Dakota State to where he is now, and he's a much different player now than he was coming out of high school, and that's credit to him and his work ethic, and to North Dakota State for the way they developed him, and now he is a legitimate asset for this Nebraska team, and I give him a chance to be the guy. Which I think we can transition into some of the questions we got here, because one of them from Steve: the better point guard is Sam Griesel or Delano Banton? And that's kind of a tough one right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. That's tough.
I think it's worth noting, and Hoiberg mentioned this as well. I don't think Nebraska ever got to see Banton at his best. We saw some flashes of it early in the season, but he got hit with the COVID situation worse than anybody else on the team. And you could just see once he came back from their month-long break, he just was not the same player.
Absolutely, yeah,
And he
absolutely.
struggled mightily. You compare his numbers before and after that. Like he was early in the season, he was doing stuff that like maybe one other player in the country was doing in terms of all the different ways he was impacting the box score.
Mm-hmm.
So Delano is a very good player, and we're seeing right now he's a rotation player for the Toronto Raptors, and as a second round pick. So that being said, Delano is a better passer than Sam. I think Sam's a good passer. He's kind of more of a functional, make the right play type of passer. I think Delano's like court vision, creativity was a little bit better, but I think Sam's a better scorer than Delano is, and he finds better. He's better at getting to his spots, both in transition and in the half court. So they're two different players, despite them both being kind of jumbo point guards. I think for what Nebraska needs, I think Sam helps a little bit better. I think Delano probably could have been better on a team that was better constructed around him with legitimate floor spacing. Because I think with his struggles as a jump shooter, with everybody else around him, the paint was just so often packed, and that makes it tough for him to get in the lane and do what he does well. So I'm kind of dodging around this question. I think Sam's going to have a better season than Delano did. And again, part of that was the COVID deal. But credit to Delano for bouncing back from that. And he's in the NBA right now. I can't take that away from him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said there in your assessment. Yeah, I mean, part of me wonders what Delano would have looked like at Nebraska last year with last year's team. I don't think it would have been like a crazy difference maker, but especially with how much Fred talked about it, when people started turning on Alonzo Verge last year, saying, well, we expected Delano back another year, and we didn't. We were surprised that when he didn't come back, we had to scramble and all that. I'm sure Delano and Bryce McGowan's would have been would have had a couple highlight reel plays together, but that's that's in what if world. But I completely, I agree with your assessment. Sam is the perfect like straw that stirs the drink for a Hoiberg system, just like to steady the ship, and just his feel and his IQ and experience, and I think we've both called it old man game. Like, and it just it's as a point guard, he doesn't have like the freakish like highlight reel type stuff Delano has in his bag, but he's got like the for lack of a better term, like the like the he's got the stuff that the basketball nerds appreciate. Like that's the way to put it. He's got the tools that the nerds appreciate as a guard. And yeah, I can't say enough good about Sam as a person and a player. So yeah. That's how I'll answer that.
Unfortunately, the answer for this next question is probably the same one, but Aaron Sorensen asked, shout out to Aaron, my boss, who has impressed you most so far and why, and what are your greatest concerns with this team? Sam is the answer for who has impressed you so far. I honestly, I don't know. Taken in totality, I think the exhibitions and their first two games, I don't know that there's anybody that has really surprised me, like too positively or negatively in the way they play. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of the things that I thought I was going to see. Just going through kind of the film study that I did during their summer and leading up to the season. Like I think we're seeing the strengths and weaknesses that I saw on tape for a lot of these guys. And again, Grisel's the only guy that stepped up and played really well all around in both games. So he's definitely the one that's impressed me so far. And then everybody else, it's kind of one off. You're still trying to figure out, all right, where are they going to settle in? You got some really highs and some really low lows, and guys are kind of falling in. I guess another Denim Dawson. like we talked about, kind of just the reading the tea leaves from Hoiberg's press conferences. I think we thought he was going to end up being in the rotation, and I don't know, he's been in the rotation. He's played 20 plus minutes in both games, which I don't know that I expected that.
Yeah.
And that first game didn't impact the box score, but made a couple of really nice plays. I mentioned the rebound and the kick out to Casey, and defensive play here or there. And this second game took a step forward and impacted the box score and knocked down a three, which is huge. His second 3-point attempt didn't look as quite as good, but credit to him for taking it. He kind of somewhat hesitated a little bit and realized, no, this is a shot I have to take, and then let it go. So I guess I'd toss Denham into that answer as well. Do you have anybody else that you think kind of qualifies as someone who's impressed you?
I mean, my answer was going to be Denham.
I should have kind of stopped talking. My bad.
Point blank going to be Denham. I talked with someone close to the program about him tonight, and they said their biggest thing that they're working on with him, he's got a hitch in his shot. You could kind of see it on his second 3-point attempt tonight. But I mean, if you can fix that, look out, man. I mean, he's a different athlete compared to what we've seen these past couple years in that program. Just how much he can jump, in his, the combination of length and athleticism with him is crazy. And if he can develop in even semi-consistent jump shot, I mean, that's big time for him and for Nebraska. I already waxed poetic about Sam in the previous question, so I won't do any more of that. But I was gonna definitely give Denham some praise. So.
Yep. And greatest concerns, again, I feel like they're the ones that we had coming into the season. I don't think anything we've seen has necessarily surprised us to the positive or the negative. I think the one thing is kind of the way that they have reacted to adversity and the way they've responded when the other teams have made runs on them. That's kind of more of an intangible thing from the past couple of years where they didn't have that ability. But concerns are 3-point shooting. When you've got three guys probably that can be somewhat consistent, guys that for both percentage and volume in Wilcher, Tominaga, and Bandamel, you're relying heavily on those guys to hit shots every single game, because any other threes outside those games, it's a kind of a gift. Like you'll get one a game from Sam Griesel, maybe you'll get one a game maybe from the combination of Juwan Gary and Wilhelm Breidenbach at this point. Obviously, the fact that they got a Denham Dawson 3 was a surprise, but again, you just got a lot of guys that they're capable of hitting one every other game or so, but you're relying heavily on those three guys as the real floor spacers, and so it's kind of you're right. There's not a lot of margin for error, I guess I would say that, and then the overall offensive kind of who's going to go get you a bucket. We've seen Sam be it to this point. He needs some help, I think, especially once they get up against tougher competition. Teams, the scouting report kind of comes around and teams figure out his tendencies and design defenses more to take him away. Somebody else is going to have to step up and take advantage of that, or it's going to be really tough for this team to score. So kind of who is able to create an advantage offensively, consistently make plays for themselves and others besides Sam Griesel. And then the final one is just lateral foot speed. Mm-hmm. We're still seeing within their scheme, there's a lot of kind of blow-by chase-outs. There's a lot of putting teams in the scramble mode. You just see guys like Wilcher and Breidenbach and even Griesel at times just kind of do the flyby. And that compromises the rest of the defense, and that's when they kind of give up. I talked about the difficulty with Keita and guarding on the perimeter. So those are kind of the main three, is just the floor spacing, the go-to scoring ability, and then the defensive foot speed especially once they get up against better athletes that have more quickness out there.
I think I can kind of piggyback off that for what my biggest concern is, and it's on the other end of the court, and it's kind of general, but if you get what I'm saying, you'll understand it. holding up defensively. I think like I was looking at the schedule and I realized, so a month from today, Purdue comes to town. Purdue, as you may know, has a giant man at the 5. But a team like that with an experienced, tenured, mad scientist kind of coach, and they play like a death by 1,000 paper cuts style of basketball. Like if they see one way to take advantage of you, they're gonna just hammer you doing that. They're gonna hammer that again and again and again and again and again. And there are plenty of teams in the Big Ten, and plenty of teams in basketball in general, who will see a weakness, and that's all they're gonna target. These first 2 games, we haven't really seen like a set defensive scheme, identity, or anything like that. It's kind of been like controlled chaos, for lack of a better term, which is kind of the opposite of what we thought we'd get with Adam Howard. When he was hired, we talked about his zone schemes, his matchup zone schemes, how he's known as like a defensive guy, the Donnie Tyndall coaching tree, all that stuff. And it's 2 games in. I'll say that we've seen 2 exhibitions and 2 regular season games, but they've harped on defense as long as they have, and we kind of haven't really seen any order or rhythm to it so far.
Yep, indeed. So I think they've got a long ways to go defensively. They've got, I mean, that size really does make a difference, the size and length that Hoiberg's talked about consistently. That gives them a higher ceiling to reach, where last year I think the team was kind of still doing the gamble, the controlled chaos type of thing, the sellout for steals and turnovers. And some of the guys were doing that. Others were just kind of like, you had some weak points in there. I think physically they're more equipped to play defense in certain aspects. But again, I do worry about the foot speed. And I think based on what I've seen through 2 games, they still have a long way to go in terms of the execution side of whatever they are trying to do defensively in order for it to work and for them to have success against better teams. So I think we'll close this out. This wasn't a question, but Tanner Hoffman tossing out a spicy hot take. If you're not extremely encouraged by what you just witnessed tonight, you haven't been watching Nebraska basketball since Isaac Copeland blew out his knee styling a layup after being whistled for a travel. And I think that goes to kind of the point that I mentioned, where this team is showing the fight, the resiliency, the kind of response to adversity that the last 3 teams did not display. And that'll give them a chance to win games that they lost last few years.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. The schedule is going to ramp up here coming up pretty soon. I mean, Creighton annihilated the North Dakota tonight. So the Jays, after kind of a scare in their opener against St. Thomas, they woke back up and quickly took care of business there. So that team's going to be tough. They're going out to St. John's next. So first road game, first trip away from Pinnacle Bank Arena first game against a high major opponent.
To go play in a glorified high school gym in Queens. But you get to see old Big Ten friend, Andre Curbelo, who I'm pretty sure I saw the other night had a bucket, a steal, and a technical foul all in the first minute and a half. So he's fitting right in at St. John's. That was a house of horrors the last time Nebraska traveled there, but that was a different team and a different coach for both sides, actually. So yeah, we can look forward to the first annual Matt Abdelmassih Classic next Thursday in Queens. As part of the Gavitt games.
Yeah.
But if you wanna play optimistic, and I had this realization, if you want to play optimistic about this non-con, they after St. John's, yeah, Pine Bluff played TCU close, but Who knows? Boston College is Boston College. I think that's a toss-up game. Oklahoma lost their season opener at home to Sam Houston State. So that's not slaying a giant in Florida. If you have to play Memphis the game after that, however, I think that would be slaying a giant. But if you want to play optimistic, looking at this non-con, with the way this team fights, I mean, I wouldn't be scared about. Well, there's one game I'm scared of, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's not daunting, as some people have tried to make it out to be, at least in my opinion. So, but what do I know? I did have a question for you to end on our Q&A term. Better poster, Mr. Greasel on poor Shadron State player, or Denham on unnamed Omaha Maverick?
I need to see the replay of Denham's tonight, but I think I'm gonna go with Greasel's because that was like on you more so, whereas Denham was kind of a flyby type of dunk where the help defender got there late and didn't really. There wasn't contact on the dunk. Yeah. It was just jumping. It was like, oh wait, I'm not. This isn't going to go well for me, and he kind of bailed out.
Yeah.
I'd give Greasel the edge there, but nice to see a couple of those early on in the season here.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. I agree with your answer, but I also agree that it's very it's encouraging to see multiple guys, not just one guy, have the ability to produce some highlight reel plays at the rim for this team.
So. Oh, and Juwan got one as well. And Emmanuel Banamel tried to get one. It did not go well for him. Shout out to Frankie Fiddler, who Nebraska did a phenomenal job defending. Held him to 8 points on 8 shots, and before fouling out in 27 minutes.
Yeah, that I'll give Frank credit. That was the play that got the biggest reaction out of me. Yeah. It was him meeting Bandamel at the summit for that dunk. That was wildly impressive.
It was like clean stuff. No foul on that thing. Just high pointed that thing. Put the hand the ball right on top of hand right on top of the ball. So
yeah.
But yeah, so I think. Credit to Omaha. I think they're definitely on the rise. I think Crutchfield did a good job with the guys that he added there. Luke Jungers has been a really nice spark off the bench for them in both their games. Had 12 points against Kansas, 8 points against Nebraska tonight. Knocked down a couple of threes. So he's done a good job for them. So the Omaha Creighton Prep graduate, unfortunately, Akala Rope is out right now. He was not able to play, the former Husker, another Creighton Prep alum. And Kyle Lutke, who played for them last year, who's been a walk-on there, shot the ball well from 3 for them last year, has also been out. So I know Josh Lutke was there. He at least got to see Luke play, but did not get to see either his son or a call on the court down at PBA. I know he's had some good memories with those guys on that court from coaching down there.
He has. Yeah, and I'll say this. I'll go on a quick little tangent about Omaha. I know we talk about Nebraska, but I've been really encouraged with what I've heard from Crutch since they hired him. What we saw on the court tonight. I live right around the corner from Baxter Arena. I think what I saw tonight encourages me to want to go to watch them more. For those who don't know, Omaha was the only school in the Summit League up until this year that couldn't cover cost of attendance for basketball players. That is one of the reasons they had to take so many bye games to pay the bills, was because they already had trouble paying bills. They have a new athletic director who's a basketball guy. He's worked for the NCAA. He's worked at Creighton, worked at West Virginia, and he went out and he made a change and hired a coach who's an alum. Is very passionate. And I think they're definitely on the rise in the Summit. And, even if you're a Husker fan, I think it would be worth paying some attention to the Mavs this year and for years to come. And hopefully it's not another 8 before these two teams are facing off again, because it's cool to see the two in-state schools play, no matter the venue and no matter the sport. So that's my rant.
and to kind of man of your word, you and I are planning to go check out Omaha's game at Baxter against Ball State, the return of Michael Lewis as the head coach of Ball State. So you and I both know him. You and I, last year, we went there to watch Drake coming to Omaha. We both know D-Rock, Tucker DeVries, those guys over there. So I figured, let's go do it again. Go see some old friends, see some basketball, and
I can't say enough good about Coach Lewis, man. I know I just went on a rant about something non-Husker related, but I'm going to do it one more time. I can't say enough good about Michael Lewis. We got to work together for 2 years. For those of you who don't know, he was joined Tim Miles' staff for the last 2 years of the Miles era. Kind of took over in-state recruiting. Definitely mended a bunch of fences that weren't in great shape with the in-state basketball community, high school guys, summer programs, that sort of thing. The guy played for Bob Knight in Indiana. He was Indiana's all-time leading assist leader until some guy named Yogi Ferrell broke his record. And then, he was okay. And Coach Lewis, he's a basketball guy through and through. Born and raised in Indiana, lifelong Hoosier, and after going from Nebraska to UCLA to work for Mick Cronin, he finally gets his big break, and he gets to go back home in Indiana to be a head coach. So really excited to get to see Coach Lou for the first time in a couple years, and I can't say enough good about that man. But and then I guess we can end on Nebraska doesn't play again until Thursday against St. John's. We talked about this with Drake the last episode. Got a pretty big game on Tuesday night in downtown Omaha between the Nebraska women and the Creighton women. We're both going to be there, and that will give us a little extra something to talk about next week. Both teams ranked. Both teams score a ton of points. Both teams are very fun to watch. If you're in the Omaha area, you can get in for like $10. If you're in the Omaha area, you like watching some good quality basketball, I would highly recommend making your way downtown to DJ Sokol Arena on Tuesday night, and you can say hi to one or the both of us if you really feel like it. So that'll give us an extra something to talk about. You've heard us talk plenty about these two games, and let's hope we're not talking about Nebraska getting and one mixtape toured in Queens like they did the last time that they played at St. John's this time next week.
Yeah, so that's our plan. I think we'll record Tuesday night after that Nebraska Creighton women's game. The episode will focus mostly on that, and then we'll get into a little bit of St. John's previewing. And then after that, I believe that they've got the Thursday game and then Sunday game against Pine Bluff. I think right now you and I are planning to recap both those games in an episode after we get through that, instead of trying to squeeze one in between like we did with this episode. So if you're a listener, the episodes will populate it in your feed if you're subscribed. If you're not subscribed, I suggest you do so. Go rate, review. We really appreciate it. And so that's the plan. It's women's hoops heavy episode next week, and then we'll get back to recapping things on the men's side for the following week. So until then, this is Nebraska Shootaround Podcast.